We live in Canada, in a remote community in northern Saskatchewan. It's the kind of place where the winters bite and the isolation whispers its eerie lullaby. Our town is small, barely 500 people, but when my friend's cousin and his parents go ice fishing, they venture far beyond the boundaries of civilization to a solitary cabin in the wilderness. Out there, it's just the vast expanse of frozen lakes, endless trees, and the silence that seems to breathe. My friend's cousin always complained about those trips, how boring they were, how the nights felt alive with the unsettling sounds of distant howls and unseen movements. But this particular trip was different. This time, the boredom turned to terror. They arrived at the cabin as they always did, hauling their gear to the ice hut, setting up for days of fishing in the freezing cold. The first 2 days passed uneventfully, long hours of silence interrupted only by the occasional groan of the ice beneath their feet and the distant cries of the animals in the woods. But the third night changed everything. It started with a thud, a bone-jarring thud against the side of the cabin, followed by the agonized cry of a deer. My friend's cousin sat upright, his heart racing as he ran to his parents' room, desperate for answers. "Probably just a deer or bear," his father muttered, half asleep. But even in the dim light, his parents' dismissive tone didn't match the unease in their eyes. The boy couldn't sleep after that. When morning came, he went outside to investigate. What he found chilled him to his core. Just a few steps from the cabin lay a pool of blood, stark against the snow. Surrounding it were the unmistakable tracks of a wolf. But there was something else, something that shouldn't have been there. Human footprints, barefoot. The tracks emerged from the forest, stopping where the blood pooled, then turned back as if dragging something into the trees. The boy stared at the trail, his breath fogging the icy air. He tried to tell his parents, but they laughed it off. "There's no one out here, not for miles," his father said. "You're letting your imagination run wild." But that night, as the cabin settled into an uneasy silence, the boy lay awake, his mind racing. Then it came again. Thud. Louder this time. Closer. He ran to his parents, but they were irritated, brushing it off as another animal. Reluctantly, he returned to his bed, the blankets offering little comfort. And then came the sound that made his stomach twist. The slow, deliberate scrape of nails against wood. It was coming from the common room. Gathering his courage, he crept to the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was tormenting him. But outside, the snow stretched undisturbed, the forest a wall of shadows. Frustrated and scared, he turned back toward his bed, then froze. Knock, knock. It was faint but unmistakable. The boy's chest tightened. There shouldn't have been anyone out there. He bolted to his parents, begging them to check. His father groaned, but grabbed his parka and joked, "I'm not back in 10 minutes. Send a search party." That was the last thing he ever said to them. When 10 minutes passed with no sign of his father, the boy and his mother bundled up to search for him. As they opened the door, dread gripped them. A fresh trail of blood led away from the cabin, vanishing into the forest beside it. Unmistakable in the moonlight were more barefoot tracks. And then the boy saw it. At the edge of the woods stood a figure, tall and impossibly thin, its silhouette unnaturally distorted. The moonlight caught its face, illuminating a grin so wide and cruel it seemed to split its face in two. Its teeth glinted like shards of ice, and as it lifted one skeletal finger, it pointed right at the cabin door. The boy's stomach churned as he turned to see what the figure was indicating. Written on the cabin door, smeared in blood, were 2 words: knock, knock. Screaming, he dragged his mother to the truck. The key turned, the engine sputtered, but wouldn't catch. Panic set in as the boy glanced out the window. The figure was moving toward them, its strides long and unnatural. Its arms dangled grotesquely, knuckles almost scraping the ground. The engine roared to life. Just as the creature reached the tailgate, they sped off, the tires kicking up snow, but the boy couldn't stop watching the mirror. The figure didn't chase them. Instead, it stood there, barefoot in the snow, waving with one long, spindly arm, and then it laughed. A sound that clawed at his sanity, a cackle that echoed in his mind long after they were miles away. To this day, the father has never been found. My friend's cousin and his mother never returned to the cabin. And me? I was there that night, standing barefoot at the edge of the woods.